It's now time we dive into a little bit of the actual game between the Cowboys and Browns. Um, Listen, I had picked this game to be low scoring, 16-13 Cleveland. I had said I did not think this was going to be a very entertaining game, and unfortunately, I was right on that. Listen, I had said going into the year, and you remember me saying this, I know, that the Browns defense overall, I get it. They were historically good at home last year. I did not think the Browns defense was as good as people thought it was. I thought they were only good at home and they got shredded on the road, which means you're not that good of a defense. And I mean, I know you said they didn't play that bad. I get it. There was a lot of short fields, but Dak was also carving up that defense. And Dallas went up and down the field on him about 2 to 3 times until obviously the defense took over. For the life of me, again, and I will say this again, I know you and I are on the same page with this. How has Kevin Stefanski won Coach of the Year 2 times in a row, yet all he freaking does is throw bubble screens? Why on 2nd and 10 are you throwing a 2 yard out route to David Njoku?
I don't.
Make it
I
make it
don't
make
know.
sense to me. I didn't understand the game plan. They did not even try to run the football.
Which
Didn't
makes no sense.
did
Because
not understand that at all. And again, the whole Watson situation, we covered it in the first segment. Who knows if the lawsuit had anything to do with it? But
which I
you watch the all 22. It didn't matter if he had a good offensive line on the play or a bad offensive line on the play. He was awful. And let me make this point. Sunday Night Football, the Rams are down 3 offensive linemen. They're shoveling offensive linemen throughout the whole game. Matthew Stafford put on an absolute clinic with basically just him and Cooper Kupp. Why can't Kevin Stefanski do that when his 2 offensive tackles are out? They knew Jedrick Wills was not going to play all week. They knew pretty much Jack Conklin was going to play. They were holding out hope, but they were anticipating he was not going to play. And they let Jones and James Hudson go one-on-one with Micah Parsons for most of the game. That was an objectively disaster game plan. And I also will say this because this was not talked about among the Browns media brass, and I don't understand why. The loss of Bill Callahan as the offensive line coach. I said it in our season preview. It was going to be a massive loss, and it wasn't talked about. And I think I'm going to be right on that. And it's another reason why I predicted the Browns to finish last in the AFC North. That everything I said about the Browns entering the season came true on Sunday.
so we'll get to the Cincinnati part of this in a minute because you did include Cincinnati in this question as well. But in terms of the Browns, like I said earlier, I'm putting less of the blame on the defense. If I had to do percentages, I would go about 95% of the blame on the offense, 5%.
Oh, I think that's a little bit too harsh. I would go about 30% offense, 70% deep. Or excuse
No,
me, 70 offense, 30 defense.
okay.
I think the defense deserves a little bit more blame than what you're saying.
I'm the most I would go is 90-10. But I mean, like I was saying earlier, the offense was constantly going three and out, three and out, three and out, three and out. The defense can only hold up for so long until the dam breaks. But I mean, I don't get it. I get it. Like last season was last season, and new this is a new season. Dallas brought in Mike Zimmer to be their new defensive coordinator. I understand that. You can't take a lot from last season and bring it into this season. I get that, Brandon. But we saw how bad the Cowboys defense was when you run the ball right at them. I get it. We don't have Nick Chubb for these 4 games. First 4 games, excuse me. But you still could have run the ball right at, you know, right down the Cowboys' throats. You could have done that. And then maybe you could have established the play action pass and gotten Jerry Jeudy more involved, gotten Amari Cooper more involved. I I don't get it. Like, I don't know if this is Ken Dorsey's offense. I don't know if this is Kevin Stefanski's offense.
And,
I
I
don't.
mean, Stefanski's calling the plays. Put the blame on Stefanski.
So, here, again, this is my question. And this is just a general question. If your head coach is going to be the one calling the offensive plays, what's the point of having an offensive coordinator? I don't
Well,
get it.
this is one thing that not a lot of football fans know, that OCs are actually the ones running the meetings usually, even if you are the offensive play caller.
So it's that whole thing is just confusing to me. Um, but if Deshaun Watson plays bad against the Jaguars this week in Jacksonville, I don't care that he's getting $230 million fully guaranteed. His ass is going on the bench, and I'm starting famous Jameis next week at home against the New York Giants. I don't
Well,
care.
I hate to say this because it sounds bad. Because again, I live in Cleveland. I root for the Browns. I've never bet the Jaguars minus 3.5 when that line came out so fast in my life. I think the Browns are going to be destroyed on Sunday. I will tell you that right now. I don't think it's going to be close. I have a bad feeling about this team. I think nothing's in sync. Watson gets distracted. Offensive line looks like complete garbage. Now, saying that, the Browns are going to look amazing and they'll put up 30 against Jacksonville because that's the way football works. But I'm just telling you. And by the way, I hate to bring this up again. Everybody's favorite defensive player, 95, was once again pretty much non existent and handled for the most part by a left tackle who's a rookie. He had his 2 tackles, he had his 1 sack in garbage time, like he always does. Watching CeeDee Lamb, you can see on a replay, CeeDee Lamb runs a reverse jet to the left end of the defense. Myles Garrett is the right end. Instead of chasing down CeeDee Lamb, he's standing there like this, looking towards the sideline, but he's the defensive player of the year.
I I do understand your criticism. I fully understand your criticism. I'm it gets confusing for me at times as well watching Myles Garrett. I'm not going to lie. It was very interesting to see Dallas run that jet sweep a couple times.
And
Uh,
every time they did it, 8, 9 yards. And they could. I'm convinced they could have done it the whole game.
yeah, but I want to flip it over to Cincinnati because we do have the Bengals included in this question.
Okay, so if you watch this game, this was a strange game. Um, New England, I got to give New England a little credit here. They were more physical. They ran the football. They played good defense. It was the week 1 surprise that we all said someone's going to get upset week 1. And when I heard Jamar Chase's contract situation was worse than I initially thought, I just kind of assumed that he was going to play and, there was no issue there. And I did not realize that T. Higgins was not going to play. When I heard that, I kind of thought New England's got a shot to win this game. And New England didn't even play that well. And really, the difference in the game was, they threw a touchdown to Gesicki that got taken away. And then the next play, New England gets a strip fumble. That was pretty much the difference in the game. But Cincinnati always starts off slow. They have Kansas City this week, and I don't know what to think of that game. They're probably going to lose. They're probably going to start 0-2. Would not be surprised if they do. Wouldn't be surprised necessarily, though, if they won either. But Joe Burrow in his career is now 1-10 in week 1 and week 2 games. So this is nothing new to Cincinnati. I think they will eventually figure it out. The concern part will come in if it's week 3 or week 4, because I know they got the Panthers coming up. I believe they got the Commanders coming up as well. And Chase is sitting out, or T. Higgins is still out. That's when I would start to get concerned if I'm Cincinnati. I'm not there yet. Also, because of the fact that Baltimore also lost to Kansas City, which helps.
Yes. So the Bengals, they lost to the Patriots in week 1. They're at Kansas City this week. Then they host Washington on Monday Night Football. At Carolina, Baltimore in week 5, Giants in week 6, at Cleveland in week 7, Philly in week 8, Raiders week 9, Baltimore again week 10,
So
Chargers.
that's manageable. I mean, just go the first 10 games there. Could they go 5-5 in those 10? Yeah. I could see that. But again, Cincinnati, it doesn't always seem to be them. They're right at 500, and then November, December, a lot like those old Andy Reid teams in Philly, a lot like those Belichick teams in New England. Take off in November, December football.
Yeah, but but I will say this: how many more excuses are we going to give to the Bengals for like these week 1 and slow starts? Like, in the past it was the Browns, bad weather, Joe Burrow injury, something's not right, with whoever. Like, how many times are we going to keep allowing the Bengals to give these excuses?
I think that answer will come if Joe Burrow's healthy and they still make the AFC Championship game. That's all that matters for them.
Right, but like, are we just going to keep allowing them to get off the hook with these slow starts?
I mean, if you're the Final Four or you make it to the divisional round every year, yeah.
Eh, I guess, but at the same time, it's like we see Kansas City; they usually get off to fast starts, and
Well, but they didn't last year.
right, but they have Mahomes, so you know
Well, Cincinnati has Burrow, and if Burrow's healthy, the earliest they've been eliminated is the AFC Championship game.
that point is true. Um, but I will say this: watching New England, sure they didn't do a great offensively. Remember how like um we were talking about the Deshaun Watson stuff in the first segment. We were just talking about it a little bit. Who was the quarterback for the Browns in the first 11 games while he was out with his suspension?
Jacoby Brissett, and I never thought he played great. I thought he played the same way he played in New England, average enough.
Yes, but he was winning games for us. In his last game as a starter before Deshaun Watson came back, do you know who he beat in what turned out to be his final game here in Cleveland? Tom Brady. He beat
Oh,
Tom.
Tampa. If I
Yeah.
remember right, they blew him out that game.
I'd have to
Or
go
was that
back and
the
look.
overtime game? I don't remember. Might have
It
been
might.
overtime against Brady.
It, I think it might have been overtime, but nonetheless, like, still, like, Jacoby Brissett. I'll look it up right now, actually. Um, because I want to make sure I'm giving you the right information here. Yeah, yeah, they beat Tampa Bay 23-17 in overtime.
Yep.
He got okay. It wasn't great, but he did get us to a 4-7 record. Not great, I'll give you that. But like Brissett in that game against Tampa specifically, 210 yards. The game before against Buffalo in Detroit, 224 yards. In just about every game except for week 1, he threw for at least 220 yards passing in every game except for week 1 against Carolina.
So Jacoby Brissett's numbers with the Browns, 64% of his completion percentage, which actually outside of last year with the Commanders, where he only played a couple games, was a career high. About 2,600 yards, 12 TDs, 6 picks. His career average, for his career, he's averaging 61% completion percentage, which is okay in today's NFL. You like that to be closer to 63, 65. 10,000 yards, 51 touchdowns, 23 picks. So 2-to-1 interception ratio. Not bad, not great.
It's respectable, though.
Yeah, for a backup, though, which is why, and they were saying this on the pregame show. I don't know how much you caught of the pregame activity. Drake May is taking about 30% of the starter snaps for New England. That does not happen if you're not planning to play at some point very early this season. I'll just leave it at that.
I get that, but like when I go back and look at that 2022 season, he was serviceable, and I'm like, why didn't we just stick with him? I know we went 4-7, which isn't great, but like, think about this for a second. The Browns made it into the playoffs last year not because of Deshaun Watson, but because of guys like PJ Walker, Dorian Thompson Robinson. Yes, he won a key game against Pittsburgh, and Joe freaking Flacco. They didn't make it to the playoffs because of Deshaun Watson.
The
That's a,
worst. That was the worst thing ever to happen to the current Browns starting quarterback.
I I mean, like I said earlier, I know it's not the same situation, but I feel like yes, you are allowed to root for your hometown team or whatever team you root for, but not support the quarterback. I did not support Joe Flacco when he was our starting quarterback because I do not forget about his time with the Baltimore Ravens. Because again, to me, the Ravens are the Browns' biggest rivals, and he beat us all the time when he was in Baltimore. So I can't forgive and forget. And I will not root for Deshaun Watson. No way, no how.
Speaking of Baltimore, Isaiah Likely's toe. Ugh. What a great fit. I was happy because I had Kansas City -3. They covered. I was jumping for joy. But ugh, for Baltimore. I think this was the worst case scenario if you're a Ravens fan. It's what we talked about last week, Josh. Lamar plays well. You play pretty well. You manage the game. You even get Mahomes to throw an interception. You're even in the turnover battle. You still lose.
Yeah. And didn't they get Derrick Henry for this type of situation?
And he got the ball the whole first drive and then really never got it the rest of the game.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And I know
But
everybody's going to point to like the two missed touchdown passes that Lamar threw. And sure, those were big parts of the game, big game-changing plays that were missed. I will agree with that sentiment. But for me, the biggest reason the Kansas City Chiefs won is because of the guy they got because they made the trade with the Buffalo Bills. Xavier Worthy, for me, was the biggest reason the Chiefs won this game. That's not
no,
to take away from what Patrick Mahomes did or what the Chiefs defense did or anything else. But to me, Xavier Worthy was the biggest reason the Chiefs won this game because
um,
of all the like game-changing plays he made, like that touchdown pass. Or no, it wasn't even a touchdown pass. It was like a jet sweep type
well, the
play.
touchdown pass is the one that he got wide open on. There was miscommunication by Marlon Humphrey. The,
Okay, I'm
the
thinking of two
his,
different plays
his
then.
first touch was the jet sweep. That yeah, he just darted and went into the end zone. That was on the first drive of the game.
Okay,
I
then I'm
disagree. I disagree with you a little bit that Worthy was the biggest reason. I think the biggest reason was one, Justin Tucker missed a field goal. That was rare because that miss by Lamar would have been even bigger because it would have gave Baltimore the lead. Zay Flowers was wide open in the back of the end zone.
oh yeah.
And that game should have been over at the 2-minute warning, but Kansas City could not put Baltimore away, and their defense could not get a stop. Their defense played well. I think their defense played great. I think the biggest story that no one's talking about, talked about how great Isaiah Likely looked, and I get it, but Mark Andrews was also out there, and Chris Collinsworth on the broadcast kept saying, "Get the ball to Mark Andrews, get the ball to Mark Andrews," and there was times where you could tell he was freelancing, trying to get open, and Isaiah Likely was just that guy. So, and Andrews said he wasn't hurt coming off the injury. He's healthy. He trained all off season. It makes me wonder if Baltimore is going to go to more of that 12 personnel, or if Isaiah Likely becomes Lamar Jackson's number one option now over Mark Andrews, because he sure looked like it to me.
If I'm the Ravens, I'm going to more of that 12 personnel set because sure they didn't win the game, but they did seem to have success with that when they went to that 12 personnel set. But here's my biggest question with the Ravens is one, are they going to use Derrick Henry more than just one drive? But more importantly than that, you talked about it. Lamar missed Zay Flowers wide open. Was last season just a blip for the Ravens, or is Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman and some Duvernay, are they going to come back this season and say, yes, we can be legit weapons for Lamar to throw to?
No, I think those guys are all legit weapons. I just think last year Lamar was on fire. He made every single play he could, and that's not going to repeat itself twice. And he also ran a lot Thursday night, made a lot of plays with his legs, but ultimately was obviously not enough. And now again, if you're the Ravens, you got to be like, man, we played maybe our best game of the year, our best game against Kansas City that we played in the last couple of years, and we still lost.
Right. Like, I don't know what you do now if you're Baltimore.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the debut of the number one overall pick, Caleb Williams of the Chicago Bears, because my God, was this an ugly game. And I almost won in fantasy despite Caleb Williams putting up only 7 mere fantasy points, despite him only throwing for a mere 60 yards. And despite all that, the Chicago Bears were down 17-0, and they did what the Chicago Bears almost never do, and they won the freaking football game. Now, I will say this. They won the game because of a blocked punt, and they won the game because Will Levis is in a competition with Deshaun Watson, Daniel Jones, and Bryce Young for the worst quarterback in football. That interception was the worst interception I might have ever seen a quarterback ever throw. That I have no idea. The pocket was actually clean. Will Levis trips to his left into pressure and underthrows it right to the Chicago Bears. Now Caleb did miss a wide open Keenan Allen for a touchdown. I think that's going to take time. It's going to take more time than I originally thought. Keenan Allen did drop a wide open pass in the end zone, which you never see. So that should have been a touchdown pass for Caleb. And that was near the end of the first half. I think Caleb is already starting to learn the NFL defenses are faster than, Pac-12 defenses. There was a couple of plays he tried to play hero ball, and, Tennessee got him in the backfield. I think it's going to get better. I think it's going to get better week in and week out. I still have high expectations for this Bears team. My concern has not raised any bit. All I'm doing is being a little more conservative in my expectations for the Bears this week against Houston.
That's going to be a very intriguing game, and it might just be on my list of my top 5 games to watch this week. That might be a small spoiler. We'll have to wait and see in the next segment or so. But you look at the Bears' schedule. They beat Tennessee in week 1. They got Houston this week, Indy in week 3, and then a pretty big game in week 4 when they host the LA Rams. Then you got the Carolina Panthers, Jacksonville in London, and then you got the bye week, Washington, Arizona, and then New England.
So that's a lot of 50-50 games and not a ton of great defenses. Houston, I think, and maybe the Rams are the 2 hardest games in that stretch.
I would throw Indianapolis in there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I do think, I'm glad they got the win. I think if they didn't get the win, it would be a different story. But now I think that win is a good learning experience for them. And listen, it's just going to take some time.
Yeah. It's good. It should be a fascinating matchup on Sunday night.
As I said, Will Levis is in a competition with Deshaun Watson, Daniel Jones, and Bryce Young. By the way, one of the things is not like the other in terms of the money they're making. Yeah. Those guys are in a competition for the worst quarterback in football.
Yes. Honestly, I think you mentioned the Titans, you mentioned the Giants, you mentioned the Browns, you mentioned the Panthers. You mentioned 5 teams right there. I think
4.
Okay, I think 3 of them are going to be looking for their franchise quarterback come the 2025 draft.
Which one is not?
I'm going to give Bryce Young a little bit of a break, just a little.
Hey, I tried. I can't unsee what I saw Sunday. I try to be optimistic about the Panthers. I'm already done. I
Um,
give them a chance. They're
all
done.
right.
They're the worst team in football again.